All right, everyone, you know it is a beautiful day when we have a lot of Nintendo Switch 2 news. It's also a nice sunny day today, although a little rain's coming my way later. It is what it is. We have some sales updates, just some clarifications on some of the Circana sales data from yesterday that isn't about the console itself, but actually about the accessories of Switch 2. We also have launch sales for Donkey Kong Bonanza out in Japan. We're going to combine all that sales together in one big topic today. That's not the most exciting news today. We actually have the biggest news of the day that does also help point towards the Nintendo Direct, our brand new fresh reports that in the coming weeks, so next week, week after, etc., Xbox is going to have a number of game announcements for both Switch 2 and PlayStation. The Switch 2 stuff, I would presume, is probably happening in a supposed Nintendo Direct next week. We'll see on that front. Also, we have some clarifications around an ongoing story that is getting rapidly spread right now, where people are starting to panic that Metroid Prime 4 is about to be delayed to 2026. And well, obviously, game delays can happen, and Nintendo is like the one company that doesn't care if they have to delay games. I will note that we have some notes from the actual source of the story that is clarifying massively that no, he was not trying to say the game was about to be delayed. He was just giving real-time updates on an ongoing situation with Metroid Prime 4, and that situation isn't like shocking. It's actually quite normal and shouldn't change expectations of it releasing this year. So we got to go ahead and get into all of that because, again, nothing better than reading right from the source. Now, before we do, I want to remind you that 2 people are going to be the lucky winners of a game of choice that we are giving away right now. To enter, you have to go down and click on the link in the pinned comment or the description. You must be 18 or older to win. It is a standard edition game. You can get it for PlayStation 5, Xbox, PC, Switch, Switch 2. Doesn't matter. You can pick any game you want. And let's go ahead and dive into this. Nearly 1 in 3 Nintendo Switch 2 owners bought a Pro Controller at launch in the US. That's just some sales data from Circana. We know about the 1.6 million. So again, this is just some quick little sales updates on some of the accessories. We also have to note here that Deltarune topped the Switch 2 digital charts in June, while Mario Kart World dominated in active players. That's really fascinating. That doesn't mean that Deltarune outsold Mario Kart World overall, but at least on the digital charts, Deltarune was the best-selling game on Switch 2. So that is really good. It also shows there's high demand for indie games and third parties, not just Nintendo games. Also, Nintendo's official camera attach rate with Switch 2 was revealed. And as we go down here, the Switch 2's $55 official camera had a mid-single-digit percentage rate, at which the Circana gaming analyst Matt Biscotel has told GameFile a mid would be like 5 to 7%. Somewhere in there seems to be what the attach rate was compared to overall system sales. So a very low attach rate. Not really a surprise. You can use any camera you want. It's also an optional feature, and you don't even need to use a camera to have fun with Switch 2, right? It's just a game chat thing. We also need to dive into some updated sales from Japan. This is really the ones I wanted to focus on today. These are coming from Famitsu. Pierre posted up the image here. Nintendo Switch 2 jumped to 152,165 units. This is actually the highest ever 7th week sales for any system in the history of systems. But of course, you know, sales were probably going to be pretty high because a new game came out. And this is where it's really cool. Mario Kart World is still number 1. Despite this new release, it couldn't quite top Mario Kart World. Of course, there's bundle sales probably included in there. Donkey Kong Bonanza debuted at number 2 at 127,905 units. That is the biggest launch for Donkey Kong in Japan since Donkey Kong Returns, as noted by Pierre there. And Mario Kart World follows Switch 2 increase and double compared to last week, which again, bundle sales, right? That's a great debut for Donkey Kong Bonanza. Obviously, we don't know what the legs are going to be. Switch 1 evergreens are up despite Switch 1 decreasing, which is a great sign. It basically means Switch 1 evergreens are probably also selling to Switch 2 owners. So yeah, you can see the whole chart. By the way, the entire top 10 is either Switch or Switch 2 games. That is quite normal in Japan, but hey, there you go. Nintendo dominance continues in the sales arena. Now we're going to get into our next topic, and this one is that confusing one that's getting a lot of headlines right now with people panicking over Metroid Prime 4. And it all started with this tweet by a friend of the channel, Reese Riley, a.k.a. Kiwi Talks. Kiwi Talks, just for some background on him, he is a person who has interviewed hundreds of game developers, including a ton of people that work at Retro Studios. These interviews are all public, by the way. You can actually go and watch them to this day to know this guy is that well connected. So I don't just say this to talk out my ass. The guy has all the interviews public. So really should watch him. There's some fascinating stuff in there. But because of that, he's created a lot of industry contacts. And here's one here where it made everyone panic. So he quoted Joey Ferris, who said, "I'd be kind of bummed if Metroid Prime 4 misses the cutoff for this year's Game Awards." Then Reese Riley quote tweeted that and said, "I know Metroid fans are getting impatient, but the reason there is no release date is because the game isn't finished. If after the next direct there is no specific date, I will elaborate on what is going on to ease people's fears. Be patient a little longer, it is coming." And somehow that made people panic because, what do you mean the game's not done? Nintendo likes to have the game done, right? Well, things get a little more complex. So he comes in to explain that, hey, just because it's not done doesn't mean it's not coming this year. Reese Riley said, "I thought I would quickly explain how vague release dates work. When a studio and publisher give a vague release date, like 2025 or winter 2025, they are not doing it as some marketing tactic, although that can be a bonus from a marketing perspective. What they are essentially saying is, at this point in the development cycle, and based on what we have left to do and accounting for certain curveballs, we think we can have it ready at some point within this time frame. So when I say Metroid Prime 4 isn't finished, it's not something to panic about. Kirby Air Riders also isn't finished. Dustbloods isn't finished. Hell, even GTA 6, despite having a specific release date right now, is not finished either. It simply means they are in the final stretch. The bigger scope means the bigger things to account for, test, etc. Development is complex, and there are a lot of moving parts, and sometimes stuff can happen that you thought you accounted for and it didn't pan out the way you intended. Example, Prime 2, the devs thought Dark World would be a cost saving, but ended up being a noose around their neck. Something to keep in mind. Now, this story has been spreading. People have been panicking. And so with that spread, Reese had to say something else because he's pretty frustrated, and it makes him question if he should even be sharing information at all that he has because, look, things are getting twisted in ways that he did not intend. And so why go to those posts and go to those articles and YouTube videos that are twisting his words? Let's just see what he said himself. I think it's getting to the point where I need to have a moratorium on anything retro/Metro related because anything I say seems to spiral into something I can't control. Welcome to the internet, Reese. It happens to me every day. I got a heads up about the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit posting about my Metroid Prime 4 isn't finished tweet. And as usual, they didn't post the full context. Fixated on the it's not finished and chose to sensationalize it to cause drama. I'm getting on top of this now before website publications and YouTubers, hi Reese, try to start using this as an opportunity to get clicks. By the way, this is not in the title of my video today, so not using it to get clicks, it's just a story. All right, as I mentioned in my previous tweet about vague release dates, it's nothing to panic about. It's not in development hell. It's not Prime 1 development all over again. It's not incompetence at Retro. It's none of that. When devs give a vague release date, it means it isn't finished. It means we think we can have it ready sometime within this time frame. Metroid Prime 4 is in its final stretch, so it's nearly done. Contrary to popular belief, Nintendo greatly cares about Metroid as a franchise, and they want to ensure that it is the best it can be because there is a lot riding on it since we haven't had a Prime entry since 2007. I keep getting asked about a release date. I think September release seems unlikely personally. It seems just too close to now. And I think November or December will be when it comes out. If you are going to post my stuff on Gaming Leaks and Rumors or whatever else, obviously YouTube as an example, please reach out to me first. Get the full context before you start posting this stuff. Thanks. Now, I didn't reach out to Reese Riley before making this video, even though he wants people to reach out. I think he's just talking about future stuff because he provides so much clarification and context here that I don't really felt like I needed to. It is important to note that Reese Riley and I, we are, at least buddies behind the scenes. He's going to be on a future episode of the Nintendo Byte podcast. It's already scheduled. We'll have lots of questions about Prime 4 and Retro Studios and all that for him. It's going to be a really good show, and I'm interested to hear his thoughts on other things Nintendo. But, it is important to note that things do get blown out of context, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm like a saint and I haven't blown things out of proportions as well and taken my speculations to levels they shouldn't be based on rumors or based on reports. Obviously, when you're given opinions on the internet, things can sometimes go way off from what the truth is, and that happens. And I try to be careful, at least, especially now that the channel is growing and getting to this point where we have obviously over 100,000 people, almost 160,000 people that potentially could tune into any episode of my videos that I need to be cognizant of, trying to provide accurate reporting to you guys. And if I give opinions, if I give thoughts, making sure that it's like very clear what the news is and then what my thoughts, opinions, discussion, and speculation is, because those are two entirely separate things. I can speculate and say, hey, maybe I am worried about Metroid Prime 4 getting delayed. But if I'm worried about it, it's not going to be because of what Reese said. It's just going to be if we don't get a release date in general. Like if a release date doesn't happen in the next Nintendo Direct, that's going to be the sign where I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is going to get pushed to early 2026. And I'm okay with that. Nintendo taking their time and making sure games are done correctly. It's actually one of the things I admire about the company, because so many companies will just rush out broken messes and then the game never really recovers from that. So I'm actually okay with that approach. And what Reese is saying here just isn't a reason to feel that way yet. He's just saying the game's not done. Well, duh. If the game was done, it would be out, right? We're not saving games for Switch 2 anymore. Switch 2 is already here. So if it was done, it would already be out. Hell, it'd probably be out in August if it was done, right? It's obviously that it's not done, but it is almost done. So even if that almost done leads to a tiny delay that takes it to 2026, could happen. But it's not because of what Reese said. It's going to be, to me, based on the next Direct. If we don't get a release date in the next Direct, then I'll start to feel like, okay, maybe the game's going to get pushed, but we'll see. For right now, Nintendo said 2025. They had a playable demo that was really damn good at the Switch 2 experience, and we have no reason at the moment to believe this will not be out by the end of December. So we'll see what happens. That being said, folks, we have other news we need to get into, and this is actually the headliner, right? This is what I'm more excited about, because we could talk about the Metroid Prime 4 stuff, and that's a really big deal, but also it's still like behind the scenes information that's kind of speculative for those of us not in the know. What about this? We've been waiting for Xbox to bring their games to Switch 2. We've heard rumors, we've heard talks about all this support they plan to do, and it looks like we're finally going to get some news on that in the upcoming weeks. So Xbox reportedly is gearing up to announce more of its games for PS5 and Switch. So a reliable insider has indicated that Xbox is preparing to confirm more multi-platform ports for the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch 2 relatively soon. Seeing Xbox first-party games on rival platforms isn't anything new at this point, but this rumored wave of upcoming announcements could mark the first time Microsoft confirms a Switch 2 port of one of its titles. Early last year, Microsoft confirmed that it would begin porting Xbox first-party titles to competing platforms, with the inaugural batch comprising of Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, and Pentiment. This decision came a few months after Microsoft closed the $68.7 billion Activision Blizzard acquisition. That was likely accelerated by the crawling pace of Xbox Series X and S sales in recent years. So far in 2025, Xbox has brought out Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Doom the Dark Ages, Forza Horizon 5, and the Elder Scrolls 4's Oblivion remastered to PS5. Senua Saga's Hellblade 2 and Gears of War Reloaded are slated to arrive on PS5 next month. The Outer Worlds 2 is coming to the Sony console in October. The Xbox slate for PS5 is evidently quite packed this year, but Microsoft may have more fuel in the tank. Speaking with Circana executive director Matt Piscatella on a recent episode of the Game Business Show, journalist and industry insider Christopher Dring claimed that Xbox is expected to announce more PS5 and Switch 2 ports in the coming weeks. While he didn't confirm which Xbox games are next on the multi-platform slate, the timing of these announcements may fall around Gamescom 2025, which that's possible as well, because that happens towards the end of August. PAX West is right after that as well. So then they go over the games that could come over: Avowed, Doom the Dark Ages, Grounded 2, Indiana Jones, South of Midnight, Starfield. These are all possibilities. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of speculation and guessing. And one developer actually does talk about a game coming to Switch 2, and that game, of course, is Grounded 2. We already have Grounded on Switch, and as it says here, Obsidian brought the original Grounded to Switch in a surprise port, and it was met with a pretty considerable praise. Now the studio is on the cusp of releasing Grounded 2 for other platforms. And not surprisingly, Nintendo fans are wondering if the title might make its way to the Big N's latest platform. Gamertag Radio's Danny Pena had a chance to chat with some of the Grounded 2 team about the potential for a Switch 2 version. And not surprisingly, the developers remain pretty tight-lipped. One of the developers made it clear that their team can't talk about any potential ports, be it Switch 2 or another platform. They did offer up a playful tease by saying, "We'll see what happens." So that is interesting, of course. That is obviously something that a lot of people expect is going to come to Switch 2. The first one's on Switch. Why wouldn't we get the second one on Switch 2? And that might not be the most exciting port of all the ones that we were talking about possibilities for. We got to remember Call of Duty also has that 10-year contract. We know that has to kick in at some point. We don't know when the contract begins, of course. Like, it's not like we have the exact contract in front of us. We only have the announced public details of that contract, is that it's a 10-year binding deal that is going to get 10 years of Call of Duty with full feature parity to all other versions, day and date. So it has to be a day and date release. It's got to be full parity, and it's got to be, complete features. Well, I look at that and I go, okay, so when are they starting that? Is it going to be this year's Call of Duty? Maybe not. Maybe this year and last year's Call of Duty were already in the works. So it was for a Call of Duty that was starting development at the time of the contract being signed, which might be next year's Call of Duty. So we don't really know when that contract kicks in. We just know that it does exist. And the moment we get a Call of Duty confirmation for Switch 2, we now know that we are in that first year of that 10-year deal. So we'll see what happens, of course. We expect a lot of big things from Microsoft. They obviously are fully embracing this third-party multi-platform approach. Even their new hardware coming this holiday, and I air quote that because it's just ROG Allies hardware, but with some Xbox stuff going on and some Microsoft Windows stuff. That looks really promising, but that's obviously a multi-platform gaming sort of device. Play games from anything from PC. So yeah, I like Microsoft's approach here. They started as a PC company. They're kind of returning to being a PC company, and part of that means their games can go on any platform. So I'm really excited to see what gets announced. Obviously, PlayStation owners have been eating pretty good from the Microsoft slate of games, and will continue to eat good because that's where a lot of individual game sales, not Game Pass stuff, happens, is over on PS5. And Switch 2, we're just all kind of waiting. We've been in a waiting pattern for major third-party games pretty much since the system came out. I know there's a handful announced. We know that, well, now Borderlands 4 is coming. We know Final Fantasy 7 is coming. We know about a handful of really big, popular third-party games coming over. They just haven't had any really big new announcements since that Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. So we're all just kind of waiting on pins and needles as Switch 2 owners to know when third-party support's really going to start churning over on Switch 2, if ever. And I know there's some opinions out there that nobody buys Nintendo to play third-party games. And look, I'm not going to sit there and argue with you and say that, we don't buy Nintendo systems for Nintendo games. I mean, that's why I buy them. I own multiple platforms. I don't need Nintendo to play those games. What I will say is I do not have a handheld PC. So the only way I'm going to play them portably on the go is if they come to Switch 2. Besides my laptop, of course. I do play a couple games on my laptop. But I'm just saying, besides that, if I'm sitting on the airplane or wherever, the only way I'm playing your games is if you bring it to Switch 2. And I do have multiple third-party games on Switch 2 already. Most of them just launch games. Like Cyberpunk 2077, Hogwarts Legacy, Yakuza 0. These are all games I bought for Switch 2. And you would be like, well, where's more of them? Like, well, my next game I'm probably going to buy third-party wise is Madden. I know, get mad at me. I get it. But whatever. I like the NFL. It is what it is. And I have an online league I play with. I don't care about Ultimate Team. So anyways, Madden's the next one I'm probably going to get. NBA 2K as well. Otherwise, I'm just kind of waiting for release dates and or games to come out that I actually care about from third-party. And Microsoft just happens to have a number of games I do care about that I would get on the system. So we'll see. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rumpeljans from Nintendo Prime. Let me know what you think about all this stuff down in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next video.